Last one swore my said 7. So who's your supervisor? That's what we'll stick with. How are you?
Good, how about you?
Good, you've got the war gear on.
Yep. Gonna be my attire until the election.
Oh, that's... All right. All right.
Oh yeah, it's the no response. Yep. Oh yeah, shoot gasoline on the fire. My wife taught me that never respond.
Because then I kind of I saw a guy who on Twitter, and he made a rule I don't like the people say everybody gets a say. So you're telling me that's true, but you actually got this guy. Where he's like, basically like, normally, the funny thing is,
Should have asked, did he serve?
came down, yeah, okay. Got to be careful. There's a lot of I did a whole I see right at the time.
So now it's different. Going up to somebody's thing.
Yeah. About the PA, uniforms, all of them. They need to do it.
I even went to
Spectator. It's one of those things where I think that they want you to sign up and you do it like a private thing with that. My wife is always like, I don't know. It's better to look at that stuff in private anyway.
What are you guys talking about?
This thing that I wrote, we were talking about our mutual friend Mendez, and then I started talking about this. That led me into the Ukraine war, and I started talking about this thing that I wrote today about how there's just a lot of. My point in the story was basically like we probably should act on the side of justice, and it probably is the side of Ukraine, but there's a lot of false information out
Oh,
there.
tons. I've been watching, listening.
And Russia has nukes, so we just need to be very, you
And if
know.
they really wanted to invade Ukraine, they would have done it differently.
Yeah, I also think though I've seen the really good point that they're probably very corrupt, so they have a lot of power and a lot of you know men and women I guess in their army, and they've got all these weapons, but you know. The guy who's supposed to be changing the tires on the the treads on the tank gets a bribe, not do the maintenance for whatever reason, or he bribes somebody to not have to do the job, and it just all the way down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's just if you're not like actually doing the job. Like I saw an interesting thread with the guy who was in the American Army, and he was like, "Yeah, I used to be in transportation and logistics, and here's what you have to do for these light armored vehicles, and if you don't stay on that." I mean, they're out in the sun, and the treads and tires, the grade, you need to rotate where everything is. If you don't do it, you're not going to be ready when you need these things. And you never assume you're going to need it until your Russian madman boss. Yeah. Well, I just hope we don't all die over it.
Each everywhere. About the 10 billion other pages.
All right.
They'll be
Criminal, absolutely criminal.
I don't want to go back to trade either. No,
I gotta go down. So anybody who's
they got to play India.
probably his jaws will get out.
Then they got to play hell. That was it, yeah. No, it's
I'll be defending.
Call this meeting to order. Those in attendance, please rise. Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome all of our friends and neighbors and colleagues in joining us in this regularly scheduled March 7th, 2022 City Council meeting. As you come in tonight, what would be to my right, which would be called to your left, there's a sign-in sheet next to the door. If you're a guest with us tonight, please sign in. City Clerk, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Councilperson Soha, Reiner,
Here.
Morrissey,
Here.
Sharp,
Here.
Stuchel,
Here.
Sizer,
Here.
and Mayor Stockford.
Here.
And one
here.
absent. Oh, I'm sorry, here,
Here.
8-1.
Thank you, Katie. Councilman Soha will not be with us tonight, so.
Pratt too, sorry. It's been a morning. An afternoon and night, so 8-1.
We all good then?
We're good.
Okay, Councilman Soha will not be with us tonight. We'll move on to approval of agenda. City manager or any members of council have any changes they'd like to see made to the agenda tonight? City manager Mackey.
Mayor, do we want to remove item B under communication as Councilman Soha is not here to discuss his item?
Well, that's a good point, city manager. Councilman Soha asked me if I would cover that very briefly, so I will go through it shouldn't take no time at all, but I told Robert I'd leave it on the agenda and speak about it in his stead, so.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Any other changes? Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Beer. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We'll move on to public comment on agenda items only. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium. And please understand, per our rules, that during this section of public comment, you need to speak only on items that are directly tied to something present on the agenda tonight. Podium is now open. Seeing no public comment.
Sorry,
That's
I
okay.
have to turn my camera. I just want to encourage something being done with the mics, as anybody that's been here long, it's been a historic problem. If the furnace is on, if the windows are open, if the air conditioner's on, we can't even hear back here, let alone the public, so hopefully it can get dealt with this time. Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
Any more public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the podium and move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda, we've got approval of bills, city and BPU claims of February 17th, payrolls February 17th, city council minutes of February 21st, finance minutes of December 27th of last year, January 24th, February 7th, and February 21st, the cemetery minutes of February 2nd, and then there's a terminal study for the airport, which was conducted by R.S.&H Engineering, and also the street closure for Taste of Manning. Didn't we do the street closure at the last council meeting, Chief? Okay,
Yeah, so I'm guessing this is the use agreement.
okay. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Katie. Any discussion on any items present in the agenda? Councilman Brenner.
Yeah, I just wanna, thank Jake and the cemetery board for, looking into the dog issue in the cemeteries. So I see you guys had discussions about that. We had complaints about letting, domestic animals inside the cemeteries and having them doing their business, in the grave sites. So thank
Yeah.
you for looking into that.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Councilman Brenner. That's a very disrespectful thing, and I would hope that people would pick up their mess if they let their dogs into the cemetery. Any more discussion on any items in the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Briner. May I please have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilmember Reiner,
Yes.
Morrissey,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Beer,
Yes.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Sizer,
Yes.
Pratt. Yes. Mayor Stockford.
Yes.
8-0 approved.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move on to communications petitions. Item A, Hillsdale County ISD millage flyers. And we've got Sean Vondra from Hillsdale Community School District and Mr. Troy Reel, who is the superintendent of the ISD with us tonight. Thank you for coming, gentlemen.
All right, thank you guys very much. We just wanted to see them come out and meet with you, share with you on May 3rd. The ISD will be going out for a millage on behalf of our local school districts. This is to fund special education at the local districts. We currently have a millage in Hillsdale County that supports programs and services through the ISD for like our autism program, our emotionally impaired program, social work, OT, PT services. But our local school districts fund special education at their districts, like resource rooms, parapros, to give those additional supports for students that have disabilities in learning, in reading or math. They fund that through their general funds right now. And as a superintendent's group, we've discussed this for the last 2 years, and we have school districts that are spending upward to $700,000 a year out of their general fund to service special education students in their local districts. So we've looked at some other models across the state of Michigan. A lot of ISDs carry millages to do what they call a flow-through fund, where the millage money comes in. There's a formula that the state of Michigan and MDE has approved that actually distributes that money equally back out to the local districts to offset the cost for the special education costs that the local school districts provide. The reason the ISD is involved is the state of Michigan doesn't allow local school districts to ask for a millage around special education or school enhancement. It has to go through an ISD. And so all of the local superintendents and myself have talked through this and are going out to the voters of Hillsdale County on May 3rd. It would be an increase of 2 mills. This flyer here, as you can see, is a comparison of where we are now compared to other counties around us, and the overall total millages. Our overall total millages are 4.17 when you look at all educational opportunities in Hillsdale County, compared to Calhoun is 6.2, they're the next highest. If we get the 2 mills, we would actually be slightly higher than Calhoun. Now their tax base, as you guys know, you deal with taxes all the time, and you know the tax base is much different in Lenawee County, Branch County, Hillsdale, Jackson. So just because our tax would be, or our mills would be 6.7, we still wouldn't generate near what Calhoun County would generate, but it would fund the special education programming that we see in our local school districts and what their needs are at this time. So if there's any questions, I'm sure Sean is a local superintendent, or myself.
Sure, so I appreciate an opportunity, and as Troy said, this is a countywide millage. So this is not just a Hillsdale Community Schools thing, but it's Pittsford, Camden, Waldron, it's all of the schools. And so for us, and in Hillsdale, I wanted to make sure that we're educating the Hillsdale Community Schools group, and the city of Hillsdale, obviously, you as councilman's mayor, it's very important in the community that we share this information to everyone. So for us, like Troy was saying, we have a situation where Hillsdale is one of those districts where we are spending about $700,000 in the red on our special ed costs. And these are these obligated agreements that we have. We need to provide the services to the kids that are there. And so one of the pieces for us that we've also been doing, because one should ask, what would you do with this money? Why do you need this money? Someone could always use more, right? Or may ask for more, but what is the reason? Where is the need that's associated with that? And for us, you know, that being in the red 700 grand a year is an issue, and that's year after year after year. So the state of Michigan, what happens when we do this is we have a responsibility to educate all kids that are within our school system. And so when they live here, they enroll here, they participate in those programs. We provide those services. When we provide those services at the end of the year, we have to create a report that specifically identifies whatever the expenses are that are used for students with special education needs. That gets reviewed by the intermediate school district. It then gets sent on to the state of Michigan, the Michigan Department of Education and Treasury Department. And then we get a reimbursement for some of those costs. We have been averaging a reimbursement of about 28 cents on the dollar. And so that's how we're actually spending near $1 million. Our net after we get the special ed reimbursements comes back, and that's how we're about 700 grand in the red on an annual basis. So that's pretty significant after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years for that. The other piece is that we are seeing a modest increase in percentage of students overall and the students who are receiving special ed services. And again, that's just something that we need to attend to when that exists. Currently, for our staffing, we're two teachers short of where we need to be in terms of our special education staffing. So just like in many jobs, many careers, we have caseloads in education. And across the state of Michigan, there's a caseload number, and that's at 18 students that the special education teacher is serving on a daily basis on their caseload. We can't meet that with our staffing levels. So we have asked for, we received a waiver to go up to 25 students per caseload for that, because 6 out of our 7 are over the 18. Out of the 6 that are over the 18, they're at 25. 4 of those 6 are over 25. So we're still in a position where we can't meet even the waiver caseload with our staffing level. And so we're always trying to balance that budgeting. I know you have those same responsibilities on what the need are for that. And so as we were analyzing this, each of the schools did that analysis as to where they are. Where's their need, where are their resources, and what is the gap, if any. Not every particular staff member has that exact caseload differential. So in the calculus that was done there, the determination that was made to ask for that amount closes that gap for that. And that's what we're trying to attend to. Again, we wanted to share this information, make sure it's knowledgeable. We fully respect and understand that individuals have a variety of perspectives on all topics, certainly including taxes.
Yep.
And if those are asked to be changed, that is something that is all definitely personal to us. We're available for any questions that you may have, either now or in the future as well.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Troy. Any questions from council members?
I have a
Councilman?
couple of them. How many students do you have in special needs? I heard you say it is increasing.
It is. Actually, our local school districts service about 900 in our county. That doesn't include our students that we have about 175 that are in programs that the ISD runs. We've done some math recently, and we're about 25% increase in special education in the last 4 years just for the local school districts, and that's around reading and math, maybe speech and language for those students.
So there's special needs, I mean, it's not the same special issue.
Correct, yeah. So we are seeing a huge trend, and it's the same trend that a lot of districts around the state of Michigan are seeing, especially in the rural areas. And I think one of the things we're noticing is we have higher class sizes because we don't have the funding to be able to offset that student-teacher ratio. So when you're looking at a classroom where the state of Michigan says they want 18 kids to a special education teacher, and we're sitting at 27, in some cases we're 30 to 35, and that's the trend we're having right now. And it's hard to get those students to the level that they need to be when you have so many kids that you're trying to service at the
Is
same
that
time.
how you say, Sean, we go up to 25 years old? Students up to 25 years old?
In Michigan, we have a responsibility to service up to 26.
26, yeah, for anyone that has an IEP.
Okay.
Yep.
That's, obviously that's not most of the population.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
You said for any student that has an IEP.
correct. So a student that's not in special education would graduate 18, 19, some might be 17, but anyone that has a IEP that doesn't graduate with a diploma, we're required to educate them up to age 26.
Okay. And last I checked, it was, we're throwing out a lot of numbers, but last I checked, it was about 15, 16% of students in Hillsdale County that have a disability. That's a pretty substantial number.
It is, yep.
Any more questions? Councilman Beard.
What would the 2 mills generate as far as funding for the schools?
2 mills would generate, is it 2.5 million? I didn't bring that sheet with me, of course. I think our overall cost,
I think it was 2.7.
2.7 mils
Yep.
total it would generate. And that would be covering the almost the cost of every district in the county. Now that doesn't take into place the Headley override, I think when we ran the formula, there were some school districts that were still gonna be in the red, just because the way the formula from the state of Michigan worked and stuff. So it wouldn't 100% fund it, but it would actually put a dent in that for them. And then the nice thing is, the general ed funds that are freed up would actually be able to go out for additional programming and services that would meet all kids in Hillsdale County as well.
I got one more question. Is there any programs you have pre this, I mean, like in the younger grades to reduce this percentage?
We do actually, local school districts receive money that's called Title I funds, it's federally funded. So a lot of our local school districts have special teachers that are already working in that fashion. But when a student is identified with a learning disability, it's more than just being behind. It means that there's a processing problem or something, so, yeah.
We do an initiative called Project Find or Child Find. And so one of the initiatives that does is we try to identify students as early as possible. If there are physical impairments, mental impairments, and so that way, the sooner that you provide intervention, the sooner you provide services, obviously, then that reduces that gap.
And the ISD does have programs that start at birth, that we are out in the county working with families and students that are qualified for those programs. But a lot of the learning disabilities that we see in the local schools is not those severe programs that would end up in a self-contained program like the ISD runs. They're really kids that are in the general mainstream. They're just like everyone else. They're just struggling in the area of reading, math, written articulation. So.
Okay, any more questions? I do have one question I'd like to ask, and I don't mean to play devil's advocate, but the issue with finding special education teachers is a nationwide problem.
It is a nationwide problem.
I think it's something that can be addressed with better funding.
One of our concerns that we're seeing as an employer is our retention of our special ed staff. The working conditions that they have, the caseloads that they have, that is a stressor for them. And so that is something, yes, Mayor, that is an issue for us long-term wise. We've had a couple of staff openings for long periods of time. We are currently using some retired educators as well to temporarily close some of these gaps.
Sure.
But we do need to, we need to grow our own. We need to develop capacities within our communities here locally for individuals that have the heart, that have the compassion, that have the interest to take those kinds of opportunities. So
I think you guys all do a wonderful job, by the way. It's actually a very passionate issue for me. So I think that Hillsdale County is exemplary in how they handle special education. So I think this is a cause worth supporting, and I appreciate you gentlemen coming tonight. Any more questions?
Yeah, just one, it's concerning what you said, the student to teacher ratio. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with children or adults, whatever, at that age, they need more attention. And if you got 30 students, that's just not gonna fly.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do as a mechanism is rotate kids through. So we can try to reduce that as much as possible. Councilman Sharp, but we do have a staffing issue in special education, as Mayor Stockford said. And that is something that needs to be addressed, because that not only affects the kids in special ed, but that also affects all of the students, right? When those teachers' attention, one individual can address so many things simultaneously. Yep.
These kids are all gonna be future community leaders, and we need to make sure we provide the best quality support for them as possible now, so.
Again, thank you for giving us time to share the information. And that's important that we're very clear about that, and that people throughout the county, people throughout our community know what the topic is, and they're educated and informed about it, and then they can make their choice. Yep.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you,
you.
Sean. Appreciate
Appreciate it.
seeing you gentlemen tonight. Okay, we'll move on to item B, code enforcement, Councilman Soha. So Councilman Soha just wanted to bring some attention to some code enforcement issues that are going on in his ward, which I know that he spoke with the chief about, correct, Chief? And, at least the particular house is been approached about the problem, but some complaints regarding people parking on their lawn and barking dogs, difficult issues, so I would, encourage people to be good neighbors to one another. But I think Councilman Soha really wanted to add this to the agenda tonight because he wanted to bring the code enforcement to the forefront for city staff to understand that that's something that's, important, especially to him, but also to all of council, so. Just so everybody's aware of it. And I would, will not take any questions since Councilman Soha is not here, but we will move on. Introduction, adoption of ordinances, public hearing. None of those, so we'll go into old business, airport parallel taxiway C additional services. David.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is, just additional services that, for RS&H Engineering that they've provided for the construction management of the project, which is nearly complete. Actually, the cost of their additional services were generated from the delay of the contractor, and we expect, the penalties that the contractor receives to pretty much cover the RS&H cost, though this cost is actually being paid 100% by the federal government. We are just trying to be good stewards of the resources. But that being said, that's all this is just a simple addition to the contract.
Okay, any questions for Dave? No questions? Entertain a motion to approve the parallel taxiway C additional services with RS&H Engineering in the amount of $10,718.
So move.
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Briner, seconded by Councilman Beer. May I have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilmember Morrissey?
Yes?
Sharp?
Yes.
Beer?
Yes.
Stuchel?
Yes.
Zeitzer?
Yes.
Pratt?
Yes.
Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
And Councilperson Briner?
Yes.
8-0 approved.
Thank you, Katie. We will move on to new business. Item A, bridge rebuild and trail maintenance agreement. David.
I'm gonna ask Jake to come up.
Jake.
This is one he's worked on for quite a while with the attorney.
Evening. Some of you may or may not be familiar with this particular bridge that we're talking about. City owns the parcel, and it's the old railway right-of-way all the way into Osseo. There was Black Bridge Road, in fact, used to go underneath it many years ago. I don't recall it being underneath there. That's been, road's been closed for quite some time. But what we have now is we have that section, because of the bridge is in such poor shape and unsafe, it's actually signed, and we try to keep it closed for liability reasons, and obviously clear out in Osseo, we don't have a lot of luck with that, and we aren't there regularly. It's not within the city limits. So we were approached by North Country Trail to rebuild this and also maintain it in perpetuity. Additionally, they want to help maintain the dirt part of the trail from Osseo all the way into basically where the pavement starts at Sandy Beach. A lot of work with Mr. Lovinger, and we came to an agreement that both sides could felt comfortable with, and that's what I've presented here today.
Thanks, Jake. That bridge has been in bad shape for my entire life, so.
Yes.
And that trail hasn't been kept up in 20 years, I would say.
That's probably fair.
So,
Yeah.
Those old Osseo trails going into Hillsdale, we used to use them as kids all the time. They were pretty clear, but last time I tried to ride my bike down it, there were some pretty tough spots, so.
Yeah, and the folks that do use it, I think they're going out onto Beecher Road and coming back around into Osseo. We'd like to keep them over on the trail, not on Beecher Road. There's some hills and elevation changes there. A lot safer for them to stay on that trail.
So that bridge, Black Bridge, is ours?
City of Hillsdale owns something in Osseo.
Is it owned by the city or the BPU?
I believe it was purchased by the BPU to run a backup electric feed to Osseo. It would make more sense if you saw some maps, but we provide power all the way to Pittsford. The current routing goes out Bacon, to, Osseo Road down to Beecher, and then comes backwards west into Osseo, and I think the idea was to give them a loop feed from Sandy Beach out to Osseo, maybe someday, if they wanted to do that, it would allow them to do that. It's my understanding, I wouldn't put my hand in the Bible and say that, but that's my understanding is how the city acquired that piece of property.
Absolutely amazing. I had no idea. So we gotta fix that bridge, cause it's in really bad shape. If that's our
Correct.
liability.
We've closed it to minimize our risks, that's why there's signed it is closed and, you know, could not use kind of thing.
But I think it's important to note that as part of this agreement, they are going to rebuild that bridge.
Correct, they're gonna rebuild it and maintain it,
Very good.
and help with the maintenance of the trail all the way back to basically Sandy Beach.
So all you need from us is just the approval. So
Yes, sir.
moved.
No money involved, I mean, we're not paying for anything.
No.
That's the best kind of so moved to do.
Councilman Beard?
So then that trail connects to other trails that go throughout is there another trail system that?
Yeah, it's all part of the North Country Trail.
Okay.
Do we have some folks here? We do, so I think it goes upstate New York, is that right?
Yes, so the North Country Trail is actually the longest national scenic trail. It's part of the National Park System. It traverses from Vermont all the way out to North Dakota. It covers over 4,600 miles of a national scenic trail.
Just as a person who travels all the national parks, and if you go up north in the UP, you can actually get a passport stamp at Pictured Rocks. There are several spots. North Country Trail runs up into the UP through there and up through Minnesota and Wisconsin and all along. So
Yeah,
there are all sorts of spots where you can get to it.
Michigan actually has the longest amount of the North Country Trail, given that we have both the upper and lower peninsula. As far as here in Hillsdale County, it's one of our largest recreational draws. We host monthly group hikes and monthly trail maintenance days throughout the entire area. Our chapter alone spans from the Indiana-Ohio border all the way up to Litchfield-Homer's border, and we maintain the trail through that section.
Who are you?
My name's Nikki Sobel. Sorry. So my name's Nikki Sobel. I'm one of the board members for the chapter of the North Country Trail here. I'm here with Chuck Ford and Dale Linton. We volunteer to maintain.
I know you.
Yes, you do. Hi, Bruce.
I know now.
Yeah.
Mentioned the Bob East chapter, right?
Yes, we're the Chief Bob East chapter, so we're responsible for the first roughly 50 miles of trail as you enter into Michigan.
Well, that is awesome. Some of that trail's road, right?
Yes, unfortunately here in Chief Bobby's chapter, about 36 miles of our section is trail maintenance. We do still maintain it through there, and we are working actively to get it off trail so that it's more of a scenic experience for individuals in our chapter.
Councilman Morrissey?
This happened to be pretty timely, because a couple of days ago, I was talking to a gentleman on Fairview Avenue who uses that trail, and was talking specifically about this section. And so, this will be very nice to be able to report back that something will be done.
Another vote.
Yeah.
There you go.
It is really wonderful, nostalgic piece of my childhood for sure. Just running around on those trails. I'm sure Ray's too.
It's a very popular section of trail. We've already had, this year alone, 3 through hikers pass through. We've had 3 group hikes in the area as well as 2 trail maintenance days. And we've had anywhere from 10 to 25 people show up for those events. So, and that's not even including the individuals who are out hiking on their own, getting their exercise and enjoying nature. So it's a very popular trail, and it's something we hold very near and dear within our chapter to take seriously and maintain, so it's a safe public access.
Did you have something, Councilman Beard?
Yeah, are there any campsites as far as for the hikers?
Yes, in Litchfield there are 2.
Okay.
There's the one that the Boy Scouts group put in. It's just about a mile from Fireman's Park, headed towards Herring Road. And then there's a private property owner who we have an agreement with, who built some rustic cabins on his property that you can reserve at no cost if you're hiking the North Country Trail. And then there's not any camping between Jonesville and Hillsdale currently, but once you get into Lost Nations, you're allowed to disperse camp between September 15th to May 15th, I believe.
Awesome.
So, and that's a very popular spot for people to be. We've had 3 people in the last 2 weeks alone ask about camping in Lost Nations.
Awesome.
Yeah, we regularly get requests from folks, that start in Hillsdale, wanna know where can I leave my car for a couple of weeks? That's a very common thing that we get calls for, so 3 or 4 summer at least.
Very cool. Any more questions? Councilman Reiner?
Not a question, just statement. So the city's owned that parcel since 1983 when the Penn Central Corporation signed it over to us. So since 1983.
Thank you, Councilman Reiner.
Say hi to your dad.
I will.
Okay.
Any more questions? Okay, we've got a motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt. I guess there's no money involved. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank
Done
you.
deal.
Thank you so much. Hopefully you guys can come join us for a hike.
Oh, for sure.
You might take some help too, I don't know, probably take volunteers.
Thanks, James. Okay, we'll move on to business item B, council chambers, sound equipment. Councilman Sharp asked for this to be added. Thank you, Bruce, for leading this, for making sure this is in the forefront of everybody's attention. Do you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, it's one of our goals we set for council this year. The public, when we are in here in the summertime or the wintertime, the furnace kicks on, the air conditioner kicks on, it does get very loud. The public wants to hear us, we wanna make sure nobody's misinformed or said, I think that's what they said. But my wife watches this on Penny's feed, and then she says a lot of times, I can't hear you. And we wanna make sure we're clearly heard in what we're saying, so they understand what we're discussing or arguing about, or whatever we're doing at the time. But I think it's time we got it in the 21st century with our PA system here. This is a joke. It's time.
Dave, are we doing anything about this right now?
Actually, we've put the funds in the budget, actually for next year in the budget process. But Councilman Sharp and I spoke, and he brought up, if it could be done sooner. It could be done sooner through a budget amendment process, but inevitably the process is not something you can just do in a couple weeks. We would want to do an RFQ, and we could have the IT department prepare that, and so we get requests for qualifications from businesses. The likelihood is that we might not have a business locally that could do this, so we'll want to see the qualifications and then have them all come in and look at what our current system is and put together proposals on what they would recommend. So that being said, it might take us to about sometime in June by the time we get to that.
Let's put the wheels in motion and get it done.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Why wait till we have the next budget in front of us? Cause then you're talking about October, November, possibly having it done, and the furnace is running. We got summer with the air conditioner kicking on.
Well, the only reason that things take time, in regards to staff and priorities. Right now, the priority is getting the budget done, but I will ask the IT department to take on the RFQ side of it, and they can find some examples to go from on that. That will help speed the process up.
Well, you can count on it from me, because I'll just be on it like I was with 65 and 69 Westwood Street. I will be on it.
Where, on the budget, where does this come from? Is council chambers upkept in council's budget?
Right now, I've got it sitting, the funds that I've set aside are under the administrative division of the general fund. It could be there, or it can be under capital, like we do when we renovate the city hall building, and did the third and second floor. I think we've got the first floor coming back into this budget, as well as the chiller system. So it's a capital improvement.
Okay.
But right now it's sitting in the administrative section.
Okay, cool, because I know council has a budget, and I don't imagine we spend too much money. We get our meager salaries and.
No, but this is really an issue though we really need to address. I mean, it's just, you hear people, we can't hear you, or you go out there, what did you say? And it's continuous, it's been going on for a long time. Especially since we've gone to this system here. I mean, the other one was much better,
Well,
but
and keep in mind, it, you know, it's probably the reason they didn't do it before, because it's going to be fairly expensive. You know, I'm budgeting $30,000 for it, because the microphones, everything's more expensive these days. Getting this stuff is another issue. You know, we're talking electronic components, and that's all part of the issue right now.
it'd be over in the docks somewhere with
True, true. Speakers, that type of stuff. Cameras, but, so, we can get started on the RFQ and, we'll keep it under, and make periodic updates so that everyone knows where it's at.
count on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you, Bruce. Any more discussion about this item? Okay, we will move on to item C in new business, 4th of July parade and celebration. And it says discussion. Do we not have the application in front of us? Because it was my understanding that the application was returned already.
So this is kind of unprecedented, and why we have it as discussion is because we've actually had 2 applications for the parade, and had a phone call additionally asking about it, where we've never had more than one person apply for the parade. So the 2 applications we got, and correct me if I'm wrong, Katie, one is for the Republican Party, who I believe did it last
Done it
year.
the past 2 years, yeah.
And then the other is for the Hillsdale Business Association, the hospital, and the college doing a joint parade / community event after it. So we've got those 2 that have physically turned in applications, and then we had a call, but have not heard anything from that person.
Okay.
That was associated with a local group. So
Well, there's,
we've never had that situation.
Okay.
And how do we decide who we pick over the other?
well, we're not gonna decide. The 2 groups can work together. I have no doubt that the big group, that is a big committee of people, will be happy to have input from other people. It definitely does not need to be a confrontational, or it's a parade, it's a celebration, so, yeah. Okay, I mean,
So that was a discussion, because we've never had this situation, Jake. So we wanted to get the council's input on how we should move forward.
Having not reviewed, these applications completely, I will say that it takes every last bit of traffic control we have just to do the parade. So if there's any additional closures, we're gonna have to start spending money. Spartan, something like that, traffic control, it could cost some dollars. So just make you aware that as we work through this, if we start closing any additional streets bigger than the standard parade route, we might be in a pickle, so.
okay. Any
And,
discussion on this?
I just have a comment to make. Like when the Republican Party did it, that was, kind of a COVID protest type thing, but, we know we got a civil air patrol out the airport, which we got about 20-some students in it, and they're doing a lot of different, honor guard ceremonies type stuff. Well, they cannot participate if it's a political parade, so if it's Republican, Democrat, whatever, so if it's sponsored by a political party, they cannot partake in that. And I'm not sure about other military things, but the Civil Air Patrol cannot, so they just can't participate in political parade, just that.
Any more discussion?
Everybody likes a good parade, but now we got 2 groups fighting over it.
Oh, I don't think people
No,
are
not fighting
I don't
over
think
it.
people are fighting over it. It just sounds like they both put an application in, and this would be about the time of the year that you put an application in for the parade.
It just, it strikes my interest with the hospital, the college, and the business associates wanting to do it all together. That's interesting.
No, it's wonderful. It is.
Yeah.
And JJ called me about it and was telling me about all the plans that he had for it, and that talked to Corey Murray from the Legion, but I'm also active with the Republican Party, and I know that they've done it the past 2 years, and I think they wanted to carry on that tradition, but I just don't see why this should be an issue. Everybody can just work together.
I just wanna, again, caution, I think when you tie a political party to it, you're excluding some people. I mean, if it's this college Hillsdale, business and Republican Party, if that tied into it, I mean, the Democratic Party doesn't want to be, I mean, it's the 4th of July is for everybody.
It is for everybody.
I think we need to keep a political party name away
Right, just
from
they
it.
don't sell.
Not that they can't participate and
Right.
have a float and be in it.
Well, they've always been in it.
Well,
So-
yeah, but I'm just saying, I think if their name is on the banner, I think that might create some issues.
The parade is sponsored by these groups, so leave it at that.
Well, but I'm saying, if you got a political group in it, I
Right.
think you're causing division, I don't think we want division. So, not that any group can't be in it, but I'm saying, how is it bannered? Sponsored by, I don't think you need a political party in that sponsored by heading, is all I'm saying.
I mean, what part does council play in this? We just approved the route, right?
That's all we could.
I mean, I don't think council's interested in looking at 2 applications and saying we wanna go with this application and not that application.
The reason I'm staying in front of you is we might not be able to do it all. So there might have to be decisions, what I'm, from my department standpoint, we might not have enough. Or if we're going to do it all, somebody's gonna have to pay. Somebody might have to call Spartan, they might have to come up with a couple grand to cover the traffic control. Additionally, this is all being scheduled on a Sunday, so depending on.
Is that when the 3rd is this year? Okay.
That's pretty expensive labor for my department. Minimum 2 hours for each guy to come in, so that's something else, I'll be looking at as we look through these permits, is can we do it all as one big thing? I don't know if hospital's looking to close off a block or not, I don't even know, like I say, I haven't seen it all. But it may have to come before this group to decide who's gonna be able to do what, or who may have to pay or chip in some money to help with the expenses.
Well, I think it's interesting to start talking about it right now, but I just couldn't imagine this devolving into some sort of argument between 2 groups to decide who gets to do the 4th of July parade. And I think that, I have faith in this community that everybody can work together and it'll turn out great. So I'm excited to hear that there's so much interest in it, and, I don't,
We'll see.
yeah.
Like I say, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, on that, unless somebody has to write a check, and then, then it might make a difference, so. With, what I mean, I think everybody can work together for sure, but I don't know how we handle that. If we don't have enough, do we split it up amongst the groups or whatever? We may need some help to make that stuff work.
2 parades?
No, not necessarily that. I'd rather not do that. We put a substantial investment in my department in these parades. It takes everybody I have the Friday before just to get the traffic control out.
Yeah.
And it takes most of the day on Monday afterwards to get it all back in. So it's substantial. That's if we don't come in on Sunday and have volunteers set the traffic control out with the assistance of PD. So
Okay.
those are my concerns. Have enough to cover everything, and if we don't, who can help cover that?
Awesome. Councilman Reiner, do you have something to add?
Yeah, just, worst case scenario, if it does come down to where there's 2 applicants, would council be the best appropriate place to determine
The winner?
Well, I mean, we're not gonna say no to both of them or yes to both of them, I would hope that they would be able to work together to do the parade and, everything like that, but worst case scenario, what happens if they don't? What if we get 2 applicants for a parade?
Well, then I guess we'll just have to make the decision, but I would hope that it wouldn't come to that. That would be pretty
Let's,
silly.
I'm not, I'm
That'd be
hoping that
a
it
very
doesn't come to
silly
that either,
thing to
but
fight about.
what if it does? Yeah.
Yeah, I have more faith in this community that we can figure out who gets to say they're holding the parade that everybody contributes to, so.
At least it's a good thing, somewhat.
All right, does anybody else have anything to add? I will talk with both of these groups. I'm friendly with lots of people in both organizations, and I think we can just get it figured out.
Well, you got 2 officers of the Republican Party right here.
We've been talking to Corey Murray for quite a while. We was under the impression that they was gonna do an event after, like he said. We didn't know that they was going to, maybe they're applying for that event. But really, it's so early, I didn't expect this to become a thing. We've been planning a big thing. A lot of the conversation didn't need to take place, but.
Get it worked out.
Right.
It'll be fine.
like, we have no problem working, I reached out with the Democrats last year and asked them if they wanted to join in, and they said no.
Alrighty, well, I don't know, we'll see where this is at in a month, and in the meantime, like I said, I can go talk to people and, well, organizations.
I'm sure we'll work something
It'll be
out.
fine, it'll be a good, wonderful parade this year, and it'll be fine. Any more discussion? Alright, so we've got no proclamations, I have one appointment tonight, that is Becky Yeager to the Board of Review. We have to do this, guys, because the Board of Review has an organizational meeting tomorrow.
Oh, boy.
And they have Board of Review meetings next week, and we need somebody. Becky is a realtor, she lives in the second ward, in Will's ward. She's a resident, property owner, realtor, she'll be good for this board.
I move.
So,
Support.
motion on the floor from Councilman Briner, seconded by Councilman Beer, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, we'll move on to general public comment. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium. Please, during this time, you can speak on whatever you like.
On the parade thing, the whole needing money to get more people, I'd like to put a call out to get more people involved so we don't have to do that, and then we have to pay thousands of dollars to have people paid to do it. Like, I'm sure we can manage to get it done without having to pay a lot of money to the city.
Thanks, Lance. Any more public comment? Tom, you don't have to get to the podium. You can.
Tom, that's okay, I'll stand at the podium, it's public comment, that's the line of demarcation between the city attorney stuff and this.
Very good.
Given that Troy and Sean were here, for those of you who don't know, I have been on the Jonesville Community Schools Board of Education since 2009. I'm currently the vice president, at one point I was the president, but we are wholeheartedly behind and would urge people to really consider voting in favor of the ISD millage. The same things that they talked about as being issues at Hillsdale and throughout the county, we experience in Jonesville as well. It is a big problem. It ripples all through the district. If you are not servicing the kids with special needs appropriately, those kids are in a lot of the regular classes that you have with other kids. And so not only does it create a problem in terms of having enough instructional help to meet the needs of those kids initially, you also have the issue with them needing help in the classes, the regular general ed classes that they're in, and that creates problems for the other kids in each of those classes. And it has been something we've been struggling with for years. It's really tough in rural areas to be able to have the resources, especially in a place like Hillsdale County with our tax base, to be able to pay for all of that. In a lot of other places, they have the funds through the ISD to be able to provide programming that we can't provide, but we all have a legal obligation and moral obligation, frankly, and societal obligation to make sure that we educate these kids as well as we can so that everybody can be successful. So again, I'd urge everybody, it's a good thing, things to spend money on. I know nobody likes taxes. That's really important. So, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Any more public comment?
Just a reminder.
Nice words.
Nice work.
Julie Gaines put on the parade prior to the Republican Party taking it over, and she was an officer in the Republican Party here locally. So Republicans have taken on this task. So everybody is welcome. It's not a political thing. It just happens the Republicans took on it and decided to pay for it so we could have a parade the last 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny.
Sean Bonder of Hillsdale Community Schools. I wanted to personally thank and commend our law enforcement, our police department. Chief Hepner does absolutely a fantastic job in support of the entire community. In my position, I have the opportunity to see what the department does supporting our school systems, everything from minor things like traffic flow, those kinds of things. They seem minor until they're issues. to very, very important, very timely things like school safety. And your department, in totality, do not miss a beat. They respond in full support of our community, especially to our school systems. And Chief Etner, thank you. I hope you know that from a daily basis, but we deeply appreciate the dedication and service of the Hillsdale City Police Department. So thank you for supporting them, and thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Chief. We all echo that sentiment, for sure. Any more public comment?
Jack McLean. I know you're not gonna let me serve all you these papers, so I'll give these to Katie.
Thank you, Jack.
I'm a little disturbed about letters that my family's getting about the, from Tifa, I guess, which I don't understand why they're saying stuff like that I said I didn't get any tickets or wasn't allowed to buy tickets. I made the choice once they turned down my daughter's application that I wasn't gonna buy any tickets. That was my choice. I mean, that wasn't anybody else's. I am gonna speak to Mr. Bailey about Friends of the Dawn Theater and Artworks, because I can't believe they turned my money down or my daughter's money down for the tickets that we were trying to buy. She was gonna make a donation also, which I guess they don't need it, they don't need it, but I know when I got drafted and we presented the flag, I never had anybody say, no, you can't present the flag because you're a Republican. I've never heard of an honor guard not being able to do something because of the party they're affiliated with. I can't believe that. I know Uncle Sam didn't say that to me. I know when he wanted me to come and play with him. I know you guys can't talk.
I wouldn't lie to this council about something like that.
I know you guys can't talk to me.
Well, I'm not gonna sit here and be challenged on my ethics. I will not lie to this council or this public. It's a true statement. Look it up. Look everything else up.
The statement I was making had nothing to do with what you said. The statement was, when I got drafted and I had to present the flag, it never mattered what party I was. It had nothing to do with what he said. It's just about the military. I've never seen anything in the military where anybody couldn't do whatever under whatever flag. I mean, you know. So I don't understand that, but I don't understand everything either. So, but anyhow, Kiefer House Hotel put on a great presentation, well received, a lot of people there. One thing I do notice over there that I think needs to be changed is I cannot ever remember a parking spot in front of the Dawn Theater. It was always marked off in a yellow line, always. As long as I can remember the Dawn Theater. And that's where the old guy would come out and the police would pick him up every night and take him to the bank. And when people dropped people off, they pulled up to that no parking spot, people got out, and the people drove off. So I think that would be a great spot for a no parking sign, or no parking mark like it used to be years ago. So, yeah, I think it'll be a great thing. My other question is, and I've never got to really answer this, how is Tifa getting paid back for this? I mean, I know they're getting $500 a month rent, but are they ever going to recoup their money from this situation, the Tifa district, the money they put in? I know it's going to bring people in, don't get me wrong, I understand that. And it's going to be good for the Tifa district. But are they ever really gonna recoup their money? Is there a repayment plan set up where that would be paid off in so long or something? And my other statement is, and I know I'm getting close to time, does Tifa still have a majority of that $200,000 they borrowed from BPU? If they do, I think a great place to spend that money, it's low interest, it would be something that could be done immediately. Restore the organ. Tifa should spend the money, restore the organ, own the organ in their building, and then it's done. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Any more public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the podium.
Mayor, I just wanted to say my office is accepting nominating petitions for council. So you can stop in. The deadline is April 19th at 4 p.m. So it requires 25 signatures no more than 50 for anyone interested in seeing that.
Thank you, Katie. You have to live in the city, you have to be a resident for 3 years, and you have to have lived in your respective wards for 6 months. And that's in November, not when you turn in your nominating petition, so. Any more public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the podium, moving to the city manager's report. Dave.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things, to answer the one question brought up about Tifa and the VPU loan. That money was used by Tifa, to actually, when they had an issue with the roof and had to replace trusses. So that was an increase in cost that they weren't expecting, and that's what created the need for that VPU loan. And that's what that money was used for. So Tifa's in the process of paying that back. So there is no money, Tifa does not have money from the loan left to renovate the organ. In regard to the budget process, I mentioned earlier, you will be receiving the proposed budget at our first meeting in April. So next month, we'll have it ready. As we're working on it now, we've met with all the department heads and trying to make the pieces all come together at this point. But we will have them for you next month. As was mentioned earlier, in regards to looking for staffing, as the school has an issue, so does the city have an issue. We've got a number of positions open. If you would go to the city's website, in Jake's department for DPS, in VPU, GIS mapping. The police department has 2 openings that we've had posted for several weeks now, 4 weeks, and we've had 0 even requests for information from the chief. So we've got a number of positions available at the city, and that might be something that we have to look at putting someone through the academy here locally that wants to stay here. That's kind of what we're looking at as far as getting people to take these positions and be trained for it. So if we move forward with something like that, it would be an agreement that they would have to work with the city for a certain period of time, otherwise pay back the cost of that. We use that with the VPU linemen. When they're put through lineman school, if they leave before they have a certain number of years of service into the community, then they have a prorated amount of repayment. So it's just something for everyone to keep in mind. One of the first items that was on the consent agenda for the airport, the terminal study. So this is something that we've been working on for quite a while, rebuilding the current terminal that's out there. It's been on our 10-year plan with the airport for much more than 10 years, but it's now up the list to where it is a priority, and the state has encouraged the airport study, because what is occurring this year with the FAA is they've received money from the federal government, or the federal government's giving out grants to actually specifically build terminals. And we're an airport. The state, as you can tell by the grants we've received over the last 5 to 6 years, well over $5 million. We're an airport that they see promise in, that it's moving in the right direction, and we've already submitted our application to the federal government for funding for the terminal. It'll probably be a little over $2 million grant to rebuild that terminal. And as part of that, we've got private businesses that are associated with airports and other things that are interested That being said, the terminal study is the first step in that. The next step after the study, and that will be designing the terminal. And the plan would be that this could start construction next spring. Also, so it's moving along quickly, and that's why we had to approve the terminal study to get it on the state's meeting agenda, and then so we could apply for the grant by the deadline. So very exciting news for the airport. This is just for Jake's, just so everyone's aware. He's already, and his crews have already put out about 50 tons of patch this spring, and he's got another load coming. So that kind of tells you the shape of the roads and the things we're dealing with there, because they will, like I said, 50 tons. And you know, if we get bad weather in between, then they have to put it back in again. So unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast with all the potholes we have. So, and let's see. And last thing, just a number of the projects we're working on with Kristen, the engineer, and Jake. And as part of the ARPA funding that you guys approved, you know, they are working on the project design for the Westwood project. That was about $160,000, basically surveying that whole stretch and designing that project. That project was scheduled for next year, and it's about a $4.5 million project. So that's something that will not only need special assessments, but also will be probably later this summer looking at issuing bonds for next year, because there's no way we have $4.5 million to do that. So that's something we'll be addressing later this summer, is working through that bonding process for that project. And that will include all of Westwood up on top of the hill, as well as down below, taking it to Cold Springs Park and the railroad tracks.
That's awesome to see that get done.
Yeah. So that, and we also have, you know, a storm study being done at the Bacon and Manning Street interchange, to give us some suggestions on how to improve that drainage. That is something based on preliminary cost estimates that I'm hoping that we can get some infrastructure funding from the federal government through the state. They've kind of asked for projects that we couldn't fund otherwise, and that was one we've submitted forward through Representative Fink's office to the state. And then, of course, the Linwood Holland Maury project and that storm drain issue up there. So a lot of things going on with our goals for the year, you know, as far as roads and that type of stuff. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave? Councilman Morrissey?
What is our bond rating right now?
We don't necessarily have a bond rating now, because we're so small, but we have no debt besides our sewer treatment plant. So that's a whole process we have to work through. Unfortunately, we're not large enough to be considered a financial issue as far as our money.
Good question, Councilman Morrissey.
Yeah.
Any more?
We do have a bond attorney that we've used on the sewer treatment plant, and the financial folks who actually market the bonds. And that process, like I said, will start later this summer.
I can't imagine that we have a lot of juice with respect to that, given the amount of revenues that we are capable of collecting.
Correct.
Due to the poverty rate and so on in our town.
Yes. Yeah, there's a specific formula for how much a community can actually bond, and we're well below that, but they definitely look at all that.
Any more questions for Dave? Thank you, Dave. Council comment. Anybody have anything interesting? Really?
Ooh, I've said my piece.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Beer, seconded by Councilman Sharp. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. This meeting's adjourned.